Za 9 let, co se já zabývám konopím pro dceru, tak jsem zjistil, že problém není ani tak s politikama, jako právě s kolegama lékařů, jako s lékaři. Protože obrovská část lékařů je zuřivě proti konopí ještě dneska, a to už nemluvím o té situaci, která byla před těma 9 lety. Jaké vy máte zkušenosti ve Slovinsku, v Kanadě a třeba v Izraeli a tak dále? Díky.
In Slovenia we have now big changes because there is a big amount of people aware of the cannabis and its benefits. So it's changing. Usually are not the problem, not the politicians, not the doctors, but bureaucrats, because all the bureaucratic obstacles are the main problem. You will not find not even one politician in Slovenia who is against the cannabis, but a lot of bureaucrats. And now even doctors are not against it, because medical chamber was our partner on the last conference, and they want to teach their doctors, but obstacles are always on bureaucrat side. Because EU are bureaucrats, UN are bureaucrats, and all those over-regulations are bureaucrat work, not politicians' work.
In my case with my doctor, he didn't even want to hear what I was doing. He literally covered his ears and went, la 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 la. When I came back and I was all clear, he did a 180. He was, Corey, cannabinoids are amazing. Do you know how many people we kill each day with pharmaceuticals? So sometimes it's just about exposing doctors. We have a very prominent doctor in Victoria who is very, very well known and worked with Olympic teams. He actually quit his practice solely to educate doctors on cannabis oil.
What I've noticed is that doctors are mainly worried about their liability. So what you have to do is bring it to them in a way that they're not going to have liability, that they're going to get more understanding. So if you can do that, then they get on board. They turn around their thinking, and then they're totally for it. So we just got to get the education out there. We got to bring the cases to them, show them the proof, and they'll follow.
The cancer clinic in Victoria is now very, very supportive of cannabis oil. I know a number of patients who have gone in there, and doctors have said, yes, absolutely, do cannabis oil.
From what I see, sadly, for example, University of Vermont, where I have been a professor, they teach the course now. They're very avant-garde with their cannabis, but they teach the perspective of basically big pharma. And that's the problem. This is not a big pharma drug. It's a food for the people. And it's that simple, and they cannot get that through their heads.
Hello, I'm Karel. I am doctor. I am surgeon, pediatric surgeon for nearly 38 years, and I am working with the children, and especially the cancer. I operate, so I know it, and I know that we have border in the treatment. We are at the end of the classic treatment. No treatment, what we use in the hospitals. We are on the top. They are free, they are only, I'll tell you about black box. So we must find a new way of the treatment. And it's the first, and the second question, it's not question, it's only a discuss. My first question is there any combination of any influence of psychic state on an unlimited level in the blood? Because there are many messages that the meditation or China's treatment or China's exercising can treat tumor. So is there any possibilities of influence of meditation on unlimited and so on? Thank you.
I definitely think that the meditation state or whatever state you get to when you ingest 1, 2, 3 grams of high THC cannabis oil certainly does. it certainly does have a positive impact, because you're gonna sleep well, you're gonna feel like in paradise. It will start some internal energy processes and vibrations and all the words that medical science doesn't want to hear about. So all that will happen, and somehow in combination it will help the people. And also cannabis is a great anti-anxiety drug. That's one of the reasons why I use it. I have major depressions and anxieties. When I'm on the oil,
very
I'm
often
okay.
anxiety with the cannabis. I love cannabis, but I have very often anxiety. So
Wait,
for me, it's not
What kind of
good to
compounds you use?
Wait on microphone.
It depends.
Depends what kind of compounds.
That's why we need unlimited access to a choice of cannabis strains and varieties, so that everybody could choose what works for them. I've experienced anxiety after cannabis too several times, but no big deal, you know, I've done worse drugs in my life.
You know, one of the things that is quite shocking, and again unreported and unaccepted in general, is that most viruses require that sugar burning mode for their successful carrying out their life cycle. And I have a friend who's had, when I first met him, he had HIV for 25 years and was fully drug resistant. And we were lobbying in DC to get new HIV drugs, because this guy happens to be quite a character. And we're inside Congress there, and he goes, oh shit, I have a Kaposi. And when you get Kaposi sarcoma with HIV, that's typically the end stage, because now your immune system is completely collapsed. So I said, no problem, put this on it, and I pulled out my oil, because I always have oil, I take a lot of oil. And he puts it on there, and I go back to Colorado at the time, and he goes back to New York. And 3 days later, I get a phone call. He goes, Bob, what the fuck is going on here? I'm holding a Kaposi sarcoma in my hand. They're not supposed to fall off. So, you know, he's off all HIV drugs. He's healthy. He does at least a gram a day. But when he traveled, because he's also a PhD in molecular epidemiology, he was in the conference in South Africa a couple of years ago, and he didn't bring any medicine with him for 15 days. And when he came back, he had 17 Kaposi. And even though cannabis gets rid of it, it's incredibly painful. He says, you know, it's like when I got shot in Bosnia and they cauterized me in the field. He says, this is what this feels like. So he didn't like it at all. In any event, when he came back with those 17 Kaposi, this insane person who, as I said, is a very unique person, took in one day 50 grams of high concentrated oil. And when he recovered a few days later, the Kaposi was gone.
This brings me back to the question about the mental state, because your friend reported a lasting nirvana. When you were telling me about it,
He's like talks to Pink Bunny, and he's not
anyway, you can reach the state which is called nirvana in some religions when you take high doses of good high THC oils. I've been there, done it, and it can really be like this. Also, I think it would be nice for the human race if they had an opportunity to actually experience that. Because I don't know too many better states than...
A lot of times what I've noticed is that it's a matter of strain and a matter of your body reacting to that particular strain, and every one of us is different. So you're going to have different reactions to different strains, so a lot of times it's a matter of finding what works for you. It might be, you know, one strain is great for you, another strain is going to make you anxious and climb the walls. So a lot of this is experimentation on yourself. You have to be your own advocate and find what works for you. I noticed when I was in college, I was never a drinker, I always used cannabis. Yes. And I was taking citicoline, they call it a smart drug, to help get me, you know, better brains. And what I noticed was when I took citicoline, that it dropped the anxiety and the paranoia that I would get from cannabis use, and I was using quite a bit. I was, you know, using about an ounce a week. And when we started getting into using cannabis extracts and concentrates as a therapy, that came back to me, and we started giving people citicoline and saying, look, let's see if that works for you. And a lot of times that would drop the paranoia and anxiety. But you would still feel high, you would still have, you know, that happy feeling, but it would drop the bad side effects. Now, I don't recommend this for everything, because it does bring up more pathways and veins in your brain, so you really don't want to use it with like brain cancer or something like that. But we do use that with a lot of cancer patients, and it does help quite a bit. As a matter of fact, that helped Corey.
Yeah, I am the queen of paranoia on pot, okay? That's why, like, the first time that I ever did oil, because I used to do pot back in my early 20s, and I always got so freaking paranoid, I thought, forget it. So the first time I did oil, I had somebody stay with me for 9 hours. But acetylcholine works like a charm, so, I mean, I don't need it anymore, but it really, really does help. It does, it's a miracle. I remember Janet saying, well, you know, it's not going to stop you from getting high, but you won't care. And she was right.
Whatever you buy the pills, that's good enough, I think. In any event, what happens is you take a lot of THC, it inhibits acetylcholine. And what acetylcholine does is it's part of how your body normally creates acetylcholine. So you're just taking a natural precursor for something that's inhibited by cannabis that induces anxiety. And it works.
I had a question about oils. How do you know which oil? There's like 5%, 3%, 20%, 30%. How do you start with, which percentage to start with? And how much dosage?
Everything, any oil which you have, you must analyze how it's concentrated, and then it depends on disease and on the patient, you know. For some patients it's necessary weak oil, for some patients it should be strong. You cannot tell to anybody in advance what is the best.
But you have to get it tested in Lumire's lab. If you want credible results that you can trust, it has to be done there, because there's about 30% variation in results between
Service. Yeah, research and development.
Later, maybe they will. No, I just wanted to say that even the test results that you get today, you should always get a second opinion, because you cannot really trust one laboratory too much, unless it's with Lumire, then you can trust it.
Which laboratory is it?
Hello, we are talking about two main cannabinoids, THC and CBD. Of course, they are main compounds of cannabis. But what your thoughts and your thinking about other cannabinoids? Because we think that there is hundreds and more, and I'm asking especially about entourage effect with other cannabinoids. There is a lot of eyes about CBG.
Your body is like if you've ever taken a psychedelic drug and you've watched these beautiful patterns all interacting and flowing with one another. That's what is happening on a biochemical level. That's just a visualization of how these flow-dependent structures interact and create this beauty that we can see when we get away from our normal level of consciousness, but it's very insightful. So what happens is these different chemicals affect different, basically biochemical hallucinations on that energy level that supports everything. So different strains, different times, all of those things are going to interact in a very holistic fashion. Ultimately, everything is dependent on whether or not it's sugar or fat burning, but then in each of those categories there's diversity. And that's why different strains, different times, different amounts have such a profound effect.
I like to keep it simple, and that's why I only recommend high THC oils now, because really screw that. Without a good lab and consistency and the ability to reproduce or repeat what you did, not why bother testing. Ideally everything would be tested, and the test would cost $5 for all cannabinoids and not $2,000 as it does now. But right now, really focus on the high THC. Smoke some of the material that you want to make the oil from. Make sure that it knocks you out. If it doesn't knock you out, it's not it. Or it's not the best or the most ideal, or the oil that would most likely cover the largest spectrum of possible uses. That's why I recommend high THC, because Yes, and always make it from more than one strain, because you don't know what's in it. There might be new substances which we don't know about yet. Maybe scientists will discover that even when you combine oil from 5 to 10 strains, that it will be a different animal than a single strain oil and stuff like that. So we will need lots of research. What we should be aware of now is that there is something like the high THC protocol, in which you start with 1 to 5 milligrams of THC and increase it to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000, whatever they want, whatever that they need. If we know about that, then we know that we have the bases covered, pretty much. Then we can experiment with low-grade CBD, CBG, CBN, CB, whatever oils. Why not? As a supplement, why not? For some people, microdosing with THC is all they need. Such people are ideally study subjects for the CBD and other nonsense oils. You know, let them do it. But people should have access to cankuzis filled with high THC oils, which I think is doable. If we start growing high THC varieties back on fields, price-wise, it would not be a problem. It would cost about $500 per cankuzi. Big deal.
I just want to give you guys an example of how multi-strains and low THC versus high THC makes a difference. I was approached about a year ago by a woman in Australia whose 16-year-old son was on his deathbed with Hodgkin's B-cell diffuse lymphoma. I think he had a couple of weeks to live. He was on oil, a single strain oil, and it hadn't done a thing. We got him on a 6-strain high THC oil, and that kid's been cancer-free for 1 year now.
It's very important to know what you have in your extract, especially if you buy it on the black market. We have done until now more than 2,000 cannabinoid profiles in the last 5 years, and the content of THC was from 0 to 96.9%, so people are buying many strange things on the market. And also people who are growing for themselves and they process their concentrate, they are now very much used in Slovenia to bring their concentrate to us, or even flowers or whichever product, to make them analyze the product so they know how to dose it, you know. And it's very common now in Slovenia. We have every week like 20 samples, 10 to 20 samples, so it's nothing unusual.
One thing I just wanted to mention is that by using many strains, you're going to get different cannabinoids and you're going to get a fuller profile. And some of the cannabinoids are going to help with different things. Like myself, I'm a diabetic, and just using cannabis oil, which was high THC but multi-strains, I was able to bring my blood sugars down to normal and get off of 8 shots of insulin a day. So by using multi-strains, you can help different things, and I think every single cannabinoid is important. And eventually we're going to figure out which one works better for which thing, but at the point we're at now, cover yourself, get a bunch of strains, get it together, and get all of the cannabinoids.
Actually, when I treated myself and was fighting cancer, I would only make a little bit of oil at a time, but it was always at least 4 different strains.